وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي. قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله يتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء. قال عليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وعمى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إني هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وعامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا هرب لمن هاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذيعة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل البيت نبوتي معدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لأن أحبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتهية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذيعة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذنوا لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال يا رسول الله. فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرون هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرون هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
آواز بلند سلوات. پھر بھی سلوات. تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے، کیسے دروازہ ہٹاؤں، کیسے محسن کو بچاؤں، سانس سینے میں رکی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے، ہاتھ میں جس کے میرا ہاتھ دیا تھا تم نے، کہ من کن تو جسے مولا کہا تھا تم نے، میں نے ہر موڑ پہ بابا ساتھ اس کا ہے نبھایا، ہاں میرا جرم یہی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے، تیری امت نے بنائی ہے یہ حالت بابا، کوئی پھنستی بھی نہیں میری سلامت بابا، سانس لیتی ہوں میں جس دم رکنے لگتا ہے میرا دم، صرف مرنے کی کمی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے، کبھی دربار میں پیشی کو بلاتے ہیں ہمیں، کبھی دروازے پہ آ کے ستاتے ہیں ہمیں، میرے یہ پھول سے بچے پوچھتے ہیں یہی مجھ سے، کیا خطا ہم سے ہوئی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے، شرم آتی ہے بھلا تم کو بتاؤں کیسے، یہ تماچوں کے نشان تم کو دکھاؤں کیسے، تم نہ پہچان سکو گے، دیکھ کر مجھ کو کہو گے کیا میری زہرا یہی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے، یہ اذیت یہ خاموشی نہیں دیکھی جاتی، مجھ سے تنہائی علی کی نہیں دیکھی جاتی، تیرا پیغام سنانے، حق ولایت کا بتانے، زہرا گھر گھر میں گئی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے۔ آپ کے سوگ میں تاریخ نہ دیکھا گیا گھر، آگ دروازے پہ امت نے لگا دیا کر، بابا جباد تمہارے دیکھیے گھر میں ہمارے، روشنی کیسے ہوئی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے۔ خبر زہرا سے تکلم یہ صدا آتی ہے، کتنی صدیوں سے میری خبر پہ ویرانی ہے، پھول تربت پہ چڑھانے، دیا لا کے جلانے، کیا مدینے میں کوئی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے۔ صلوات۔ آواز بلند، صلوات۔
Come on this side, Hassan. This will be on this side. فاتحہ۔ ایک اور فاتحہ خصوصاً نسیم فاطمہ جعفری بنت سید حسین رضوی کے لیے پلیز۔ خواب میں زہرا نے بابا کو جو دیکھا ایک شب، خوش ہوئی پاس میں بابا کے، چلی جاؤں گی اب، ہائے رونے لگی، بچوں کا خیال آ گیا جب، یہ خبر ہی نہ ہوئی، پاس حسین آ گئے کب، اماں ڈھونڈیں گے کہاں، یاد اگر آئے گی ہم تو مر جائیں گے، گر آپ چلی جائیں
ماں نے جب یہ سنا دل تڑپنے لگا، پیار کرتے ہوئے فاطمہ نے کہا، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے۔ ماں کسی کی ہمیشہ رہی ہے کبھی، میں بھی بچھڑی تھی اماں سے بچپن میں ہی، ماں کے جانے کا دکھ تو بہت تھا مگر دیکھو میں بھی تو بن ماں کے جیتی رہی، تم کو میری قسم تم سے بچھڑے جو ہم ضبط کرنا ہے لال ماں کا یہ غم، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے۔ حال میں نے کسی کو سنایا نہیں، خود تو روئی علی کو بتایا نہیں، میرا پہلو شکستہ ہے بس اس لیے اپنے سینے سے تجھ کو لگایا نہیں، ٹوٹی ہے پسلیاں کر نہ پائی بیاں، کتنی تکلیف میں جی رہی ہے یہ ماں، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے۔ مجھ کو معلوم ہے میرے نور نظر، پیاس لگتی ہے تم کو بہت رات بھر، پیاس سہنے کی عادت بھی ڈالو ذرا، پیاسا رہنا پڑے کب کہاں کیا خبر، پیاس تم کو لگے اور نہ پانی ملے، یہ دعا ہے کہ وہ دن نہ آئے کبھی، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے۔ اے میرے دل میرے چین میرے ہنسی، نہ پریشان ہو ماں اب بھی ہے یہ یہی، دیکھو مرنے کی اب بات کرنا نہیں، موت سے پہلے ہم مر نہ جائے کہیں، تم ہو دنیا میری تم سے ہے زندگی، تم کو دیکھوں تو چلتی ہے سانسیں میری، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے، تم کو کھانا بھی فضا کھلائے گی اب، اور سویرے وہی منہ دھلائے گی اب، تم جہاں جاؤ گے ساتھ جائے گی وہ، سات ماں کی طرح وہ نبھائے گی اب، پالے گی اب وہی، ضد نہ کرنا کوئی، خوش رہو گے تو ماں کو بھی ہوگی خوشی، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے، دن وہ آیا کہ جب چل بسی فاطمہ، ماں کی میت پہ شبیر نے دی صدا، تم بلاؤگی تو پاس آؤں گا میں، ٹوٹے بندے کفن فاطمہ نے کہا، آ جائے میری جان تجھ پہ قربان ماں، جب حسین آ کے لپٹے تو بولی یہ ماں، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے، اے رضا ذیشان دل تھام لو، رو کے شبیر کہتے تھے اماں سنو، دیکھو تم نے بلایا تو میں آ گیا، جب بلاؤں گا آؤ گی وعدہ کرو، ماں نے وعدہ کیا، بیٹا چپ ہو گیا، جب جنازہ اٹھا پھر نہ آئی صدا، دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہتے، صلوات۔
آواز بلند صلوات، اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد،
ایک اور آواز بلند درود پڑھ دیں۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
بولے آپس میں فرشتے کہ یہ منظر دیکھو، بولے آپس میں فرشتے کہ یہ منظر دیکھو، آؤ اوج پر کتنا ہے زہرا کا مقدر دیکھو، اوج پر کتنا ہے زہرا کا مقدر دیکھو، آیتیں آئی تو بیٹھے رہے محبوب خدا، آیتیں آئی تو بیٹھے رہے محبوب خدا، فاطمہ آئی تو اٹھتے ہیں پیغمبر دیکھو، فاطمہ آئی تو اٹھتے ہیں پیغمبر دیکھو، اوج پر کتنا ہے، درود بر محمد و آل محمد۔ ایک سورہ فاتحہ بانی مجلس اکبر زیدی صاحب کے تمام مرحومین کے ساتھ ساتھ اپنے مرحومین کو شامل کرتے ہوئے۔ مرثیے کے چند بند ہیں، یا آواز بلند درود پڑھ دیں۔
اللہم صلی
دنیا سے آج رحلتے بنت رسول ہے، دنیا سے آج رحلتے بنت رسول ہے، دست اجل میں عصمت کبریٰ کا پھول ہے، قبر نبی لرزتی ہے، یثرب ملول ہے، حسنین و مرتضیٰ سے وداع بطول ہے، پٹی سے لگ کے زینب کلثوم روتی ہیں، اس کم سنی میں بچیاں بے ماں کے ہوتی ہیں، اس کم سنی میں بچیاں بے ماں کے ہوتی ہیں، زینب کا حال یہ ہے کہ آنسو تو ہیں رواں، کلثوم کو بھی دیتی ہیں ہم تسلیاں، فرما رہی ہے چھوٹی بہن سے کہ میری جان رہتی نہیں جان میں ہمیشہ کسی کی ماں، بے بس تمہیں بے بس تھی ہم کو چھوڑ کے گریا چلی گئی، اللہ نے بلا لیا اماں چلی گئی، اللہ نے بلا لیا اماں چلی گئی، زینب کی بھولی باتوں پر مضطر تھے مرتضیٰ، آسمان بچیوں کو گلے سے لگا لیا، چپ کے کھڑے تھے لاش کی بالی پہ مجتبی، اور سر رکھا تھا قدموں پہ ماں کی حسین کا، سب رو رہے تھے دیکھ کے میت بطول کی، دنیا سے اٹھ رہے تھے نشانی رسول کی، دنیا سے اٹھ رہے تھے نشانی رسول کی، میت کے پاس بیٹھ کے بولے یہ مرتضیٰ، بچوں سنبھالو دل کو کہ یہ صبر کی حجا، اب اہتمام کرنا ہے میت کے غسل کا، اسما کے ساتھ صحن میں جاؤ پدر فدا، تعمیل ہو وصیت بنت رسول کی، انجام دے ہم آخری خدمت بطول کی، انجام دے ہم آخری خدمت بطول کی، اللہ کتنے ظلم ہوئے ہیں بطول پر، تھرا رہا کرب سے تاریخ کا جگر، روتے تڑپتے گزری ہے بی بی کی عمر بھر، محشر ہر ایک شب کی قیامت ہر ایک سحر، شہزادی کیسے زخموں کی تیرے دوا کریں، آنسو بہا رہے ہیں غلام اور کیا کریں، آنسو بہا رہے ہیں غلام اور کیا کریں، دنیا سے آج رحلتے، درود بر محمد و آل محمد۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum mu'mineen. Couple of announcements before I call our speaker tonight. We are moving our Sunday school to Friday to accommodate all the families who can come, and as the Zainabia Islamic Academy, inshallah, starting from January 12th, inshallah. This will be the first semester we will be starting. If you have to enroll your kids, please contact Sister Misbah. We will be, inshallah, rolling out the flyer. Second announcement is tomorrow we will have the second Majalis of Sayyid Sadiq Qazwini, starting from 7 p.m. Inshallah, we will have Tabut of Bibi Fatima Zahra Salawatullah. Quick introduction about Sayyid. He is one of the youngest scholar which I have met. Sayyid Muhammad Sadiq Qazwini is a speaker with an interest in Islamic history and theology. Being raised in holy city of Karbala, he studied in the Islamic Seminary of Karbala under the likes Ayatollah Sayyid Murtada al-Qazwini and Sayyid Hussein al-Qazwini, and currently continues his Hausa studies from Michigan. He graduated from UCLA with a degree in political science and Middle Eastern studies. Currently, he is part of multiple local and national organizations aimed at empowering Muslim youth in North America, and serves as the executive director of the Shia Professional Association for Creativity and Education. With the loudest salawat, I would invite Sayyid Sadiq Qazwini to recite tonight's majlis. Salawat bar Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Actually, let's. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. روي عن مولانا أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام في رسالة له أنه قال: بلى كانت في أيدينا فدك من كل ما أظلته السماء فشحت عليها نفوس قوم وسخت عنها نفوس آخرين. آمنا بالله. For the love of Fatima Zahra alayha salam, صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. And for the love of her father Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, صلوا على Muhammad again. And to hasten the reappearance of our 12th Imam, Al-Imam Sahib Al-Asri wa Zaman, let us recite the loudest salawat. The history of Islam is filled with many disagreements and disputes. Rarely would you find an event in Islamic history in which all historians, scholars, and people have the same beliefs about it. Now, some of these disagreements can be over issues and events that are trivial, that don't have any theological and actual implications, while other disagreements can be over topics and events that have the most severe and extreme theological implications. And when we examine the issue of Fadak, we realize it is one of those issues that are at the forefront of issues that have severe theological implications. If you take a quick glance of the figures that are involved in the dispute of Fadak, you will see that on one hand you have Fatima Zahra alayha salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Fatima Zahra alayha salam, along with her husband, the commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Al-Imam al-Hasan, Al-Imam al-Hussein, and the caretaker of Rasulullah, Ayman. On the other hand, you have the first Khalifa, Abu Bakr, his daughter and the wife of Rasulullah, Aisha, and in some historians they say Umar and his daughter Hafsa as well. And the fact of the matter is that the issue of Fadak, you cannot say that there is a gray area. You're either on this side or that side. There is no scenario in which you can say that Fatima was correct and Abu Bakr was also correct. For the fact of the matter is Fadak was either Fatima Zahra's or not. A land cannot be yours and not yours at the same time. So either we say that the land was for Fatima Zahra, or we say that it wasn't for Fatima Zahra. And obviously, wherever you land on this issue, you will have theological implications. Therefore, brothers and sisters, let us tonight tackle a few questions in order to determine on which side of history are we. The first question that we must understand is, what is Fadak? And where is it located? The second is, how did Fadak end up in the hands of Fatima Zahra alayha salam? Third, what happened to the land of Fadak after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi? Fourth, Why would the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam argue so intensely over a piece of land if their focus wasn't on this dunya? What makes it so significant? And what made Abu Bakr interested in this piece of land? And lastly, why didn't Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam retake Fadak when he became the governor and the caliph of the Islamic Ummah? But before we answer these questions, we need a loud salawat. Fadak is a large piece of land. In fact, it was a village that was around 130 miles away from the city of Medina. Back at the day, it would take you 2 days and a half to get from Medina to Fadak. Today you can easily take a taxi and within 2 hours and a half, you are at the land and village of Fadak. This village was inhabited and owned by a Jewish community. And at the time, the Jewish community was very vibrant in the city of Medina, the outskirts of the city of Medina, and in some villages and cities around the city of Medina, including Khaybar. All of us know Khaybar and what Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam did in the battle of Khaybar. One of those cities was Khaybar and the other one was Fadak. So after the battle of Khaybar, the Jewish leaders of Fadak realized that it would be best for them to go and visit Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, to show their goodwill and to make a peace offering. So what they did is they went and visited Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and they told him, "Oh Rasulullah, oh Muhammad, we offer you half of our land." And that's when Rasulullah took possession of half of Fadak. And that's the land that we will be talking about today. In Islamic law, in fiqh, there is something called fate. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it in the Holy Quran. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَا أَفَاءَ اللَّهُ عَلَى رَسُولِهِ مِنْهُمْ فَمَا أَوْجَفْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ خَيْلٍ وَلَا رِكَابٍ. Allah talks about the wealth, the land, and anything that Muslims acquire without war. So let's say Muslims acquire a gift from a piece of land, a piece of wealth, gold. All of this is considered to be fate. Fate doesn't go to the Muslims. It goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Unlike war, when there is war and Muslims under Rasulullah would win, the spoils of war would be divided equally amongst the soldiers. In the matter of fate, the sole possession of this land is to who? Is to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, in this case, Fadak is fate. It goes directly to the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Now in another verse in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives some guidelines to Rasulullah. He tells him, "Oh Rasulullah, the fate is yours, but also give it to the Qurba, give it to the Masakeen, give it to Ibn al-Sabil, give it to the Yatama." And the first of that list is what? The Qurba. Jibreel alayhi salam, moments after he comes down to Rasulullah, and he tells him, "Ya Rasulullah," he reveals this verse, وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهِ. Rasulullah asks, and in this case, who are the Qurba? He tells him, Fatima. He tells him, give Fadak to Fatima. And this, brothers and sisters, is mentioned in both Shia and other schools of thought. It's mentioned in both. And if you want, after the majlis, I can show you the exact references in which the Sahabi Abu Sa'id al-Khidri narrates about this instance. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi receives the order from the sky that you give Fadak to Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. Rasulullah goes to Fatima Zahra And he speaks to her, O daughter of Khadija. Khadija gave all of her wealth and all of her effort to Islam, especially during the first early years when Islam was as its weakest, especially during Sha'b Abi Talib, when the Muslims were under siege. They all depended on the wealth of Khadija. Whatever Khadija had, she gave to Islam. It is narrated that when she died, Khadija did not even have the money for a kafan. That is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he covered her with his own aba'ah, with his own rida'. That is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi speaks to her. He tells her, O daughter of Khadija, the best way I can repay your mother is by giving you this piece of land. So Fatima Zahra, from that day, on the year 7th of Hijrah, according to some historians and some other historians say the 6th year of Hijrah, she takes possession of the land of Fadak. And she sends her farmers, and they harvest the land. And this is a village. It has many palm trees and other fruits. So Fatima Zahra would send her farmers and they would harvest this land. But as we know, if you read the life of Fatima Zahra, you would realize that this land never benefited Fatima Zahra monetarily. This is the same house in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in Surah Al-Insan. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. This is the same house that did not have food for 3 days. Fadak was not a monetary benefit for Fatima Zahra. Rather, it was an opportunity to Fatima Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet, to give to the poor, to the needy. When they would knock the door of Fatima Zahra, they would tell her, O daughter of the Prophet. Of course, Fatima Zahra has to give something. And that is why, by having the land of Fadak, she can give to those who ask her, to preserve her dignity as the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. So Fatima gives out the harvest and the fruits and the food that Fadak would acquire on a quarterly, on a monthly basis. And she had full possession of it until the death and departure of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the 28th of Safar, on the year 11th of Hijrah, everything changed. Everything changed for Fatima Zahra. Everything changed for Fadak. Everything changed in history. Her life before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was vastly different. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi died, Fadak was taken away by Abu Bakr from Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. So Fatima Zahra naturally goes to Abu Bakr and objects. Why did you send your people to kick out my farmers? Am I not the one who has possession over Fadak? Abu Bakr tells her that you have to prove that you own Fadak. Now I ask you a question. Can someone randomly just knock your house, knock your door, and tell you have to prove that you own this house? When has this happened? In Islamic law, there's something called al-yad. When you have possession over something, when you control something, by nature, it means that you own it, unless proven otherwise. So in this instance, it wasn't that Fatima Zahra needed to prove that Fadak was hers. It was Abu Bakr and those who opposed that had to prove that Fatima Zahra did not in fact own Fadak. Not Fatima Zahra. When someone wants to take your house away, they would have to show proof that you don't own that house, not that you own the house. So Fatima Zahra alayhi salam brings Amir al-Mu'mineen, she brings Al-Hasan, she brings Al-Hussein, she brings Ayman, the caretaker of Rasulullah, all of those 4 individuals, she brings them and they testify. They're witnesses that we saw with our very own eyes Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi tell Fatima Zahra that Fadak is a gift to you. What's the response? Ali, Hassan, Hussein, I'm sorry, but your testimony is invalid. Why? Conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. Ayman is a woman, her testimony is half a person, half a man. You need to have 2 men in this case. So bring another man and another woman, or bring at least 2 more men. Fatima Zahra alayhi salam tells him, okay, if you want to make this difficult, no worries. Fadak is still mine. How come? Inheritance. I am the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. If you say that he did not give it to me in my life, then I should have it right now because he died and I'm his inheritor. He then says, I have heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi say with my own ears, I heard him say, نحن معاشر الأنبياء لا نورث ما تركناه صدقة. We, the prophets of Allah, do not leave any inheritance. Anything that we leave is considered to be sadaqah. Ajib. I'm the daughter of Rasulullah. Amir al-Mu'mineen standing next to her. I'm the companion. I'm the closest companion to Rasulullah. I never heard of this hadith. Who are your other witnesses? He brought his witnesses. His daughter Aisha and a man by the name صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So who are your witnesses, Abu Bakr? He says, I am my first witness. And my second witness is my daughter Aisha. And my third witness is Malik ibn al-Huwayrith. But I ask you this question. With the logic of Abu Bakr, isn't it fair to say that he also has a conflict of interest? If he says that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, his testimony is invalid because it's his wife and he has a conflict of interest, then he is also the person who is saying that he will also be the one that is taking this property. So by nature, he also has a conflict of interest. And the same thing applies for his daughter Aisha. Because she is also benefiting, if her father is benefiting, she is also benefiting. Therefore, by Abu Bakr's own logic, his testimony and the testimony of his daughter Aisha are what? They're invalid. What about Malik ibn al-Huwayrith? You might say Malik ibn al-Huwayrith might be a good man. His testimony is, valid, and we should take his word. Well, I won't give you the answer. Allah, Uthman ibn Affan, the third caliph, give you the answer himself. One day, Uthman, during his caliphate, he was sitting in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and the wives of Rasulullah, Aisha and Hafsa, come up to him. And they tell him that we have noticed that our salaries have decreased from the time of Umar. Why is that? Give us our full salary. He told them, you will not find that with me. I won't give you that. Times have changed, and this is a new salary. They then tell him, okay, you won't give us our salary, then at least give us the remainder of our inheritance. The narration says that Uthman was sitting, he stood up. He says, weren't you the ones? Weren't you the ones who came and fabricated this hadith against Fatima Zahra, that Rasulullah and all the other prophets do not leave any inheritance behind? And now you are the ones who are claiming that you should receive your inheritance? And in the middle of this sentence, he says, weren't you the ones that brought Malik ibn al-Huwayrith, the man, the A'rabi? You know what A'rabi is? A'rabi are those who believe towards the last days of Rasulullah's life. Those were the Muslims that did not believe with their heart. They believed because it was the right thing to do at the time politically. Because everyone was converting to Islam, so they wanted to ensure that they were on the right side when it comes to politics, and they wouldn't endanger their lives and their families. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran says, وَقَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا قُولُوا بَلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا. Don't say that you believed. Don't say that you believed. There is no iman. You just said the words. It doesn't mean that you became a true mu'min. So Uthman says, weren't you the ones who brought Malik ibn al-Huwayrith, the A'rabi, who used to cleanse himself with his own urine? And I'll leave it at that. This is the man that testified against Fatima Zahra. This is the man who testified against Fatima Zahra. And because of the testimony of Abu Bakr, because of the testimony of Aisha, because of the testimony of this A'rabi, Fatima Zahra alayhi salam lost Fadak, and it was usurped from her. Subhanallah. On that day, some people decided not only that they were going to be the caliph at the time, but they were also the judge, the jury, and the executioner. All against the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It took less than a month. This whole instance, this story that I've been telling you, you know how, when it happened? It happened mere days after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet died on the 28th of Safar. This instance happened in Rabi' al-Awwal. So not even 30 days. And therefore, brothers and sisters, Fadak was the first stolen land in the religion of Islam. When we witness what's happening today in Palestine, the killing of almost 20,000 individuals in 60 days, the usurpation of people's lands, the destruction of people's homes and livelihoods, we ought to remember the first stolen land in the religion of Islam and learn from it. And tragically, the land of Fadak was taken by those very people who claim to be the loyal companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Fatima alayhi salam, as always, she made it possible to give us a lesson in every instance. And the life of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam is filled with lessons. So once this issue happens, Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, she says, she makes it clear that I will put this in the history books, and I will make it clear to every Muslim that I was oppressed. So she wears her abaya, what we call today abaya, and she gathers the women in her family, and she heads to the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi at a time when Abu Bakr and many of the Muslims are gathered in the masjid. The hadith says that she enters the majlis of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and she looks at everyone, and all of a sudden the masjid is quiet. The daughter of Rasulullah entered. She has something to say. We all better learn. We all better listen to what she has to say. And she begins what the historians call the sermon of Fadak, al-Khutbah al-Fadakiyya. And brothers and sisters, if there is one sermon that you want to learn, if there is one sermon in life that you want to read, then I suggest it is the sermon of Fadak. If you want to learn Tawheed, read the sermon of Fadak. If you want to learn Nubuwah, read the sermon of Fadak. If you want to learn Quran, read the sermon of Fadak. If you want to learn about the Ahlul Bayt and Imamah, read the sermon of Fadak. for it is truly nothing but a masterpiece. She begins by the praise of Allah. And if you notice that every single speech by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, regardless what it's about, regardless of the context, they will always begin their speech by the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she begins her speech by the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in very beautiful description. Truly, if you learn what Fatima Zahra alayha salam says in that sermon, then you will realize that you will not need any more Tawheed classes. You will have a full understanding of Tawheed in the religion of Islam because of how accurately and how descriptive she is in that speech. And then she follows on and discusses the praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And she makes it clear that she is his daughter, and she shows her significance in the eyes of her father, Rasulullah. And then she begins refuting Abu Bakr to the entire Muslim community to make herself heard. She says, يَا ابْنَ أَبِي قُحَافَةَ أَفِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَرِثُ أَبَاكَ وَلَا أَرِثُ أَبِي. O son of Quhafa, O son of Abi Quhafa, is it in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you inherit your father, but I do not inherit my father? And then she begins to outline the verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his holy book talk about inheritance. Not only talk about inheritance, but talk about inheritance between prophets. وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَاوُودَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his holy book, he says Sulaiman inherited Dawood. فَهَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. Zakaria speaking, making a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a child, which was Prophet Yahya, to inherit Bani Yaqub. يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about inheritance, has mentioned inheritance, and also He's mentioned inheritance that applies to this very case. The inheritance by the prophets. If anyone wants to claim that the prophets do not leave inheritance behind, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His very own book says that the prophets left things behind. She tells him, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allocate a special verse in the Holy Quran that prevented me from inheriting my father? Or is it because that you say that two people of different religions are not able to inherit one another? Am I not on the same religion as my father? And listen to this point. This point, I'm sure, was more painful than the entire sermon. She tells him, or are you more knowledgeable about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than my father and my cousin, meaning Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam? You see, when I say, if you want to learn about imamah, you learn it from the sermon of Fadak. She mentions it in the face of the people that oppressed her, in front of the entire Muslim community. She makes it clear that the most knowledgeable after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And from that day, brothers and sisters, the issue of Fadak was ingrained in the history books of Islam. And it is truly a black page in the history of Muslims. Not Islam, Muslims. Because you cannot put a black mark on something that is divine. But Muslims aren't necessarily divine. Our history is filled with corruption, filled with oppression. And on that day, the first land in Islam was usurped. Now you might ask, and it's a valid question. You might say that the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam never cared for wealth in this dunya. They never cared for this dunya. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam would hold gold and silver in his hands, and he would say, Ya bayda, ya safra ghurri ghayri. He wouldn't even call it gold, he wouldn't even call it silver. He would decrease them to their color. He would talk, oh yellow, oh white, go lure someone else, go entice someone else. I don't have any care for you. So why would the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have such a strong argument over Fadak if it doesn't really matter that much? And the answer, brothers and sisters, is the value of Fadak. The importance of Fadak, the significance of Fadak, isn't because Fadak was a large land, isn't because Fadak brought a lot of wealth to the Muslim community. Rather, Fadak represented Imamah. And I'll tell you how. Fadak represented the argument of Fatima Zahra. Is that true? Which side was Fatima Zahra on? Was she on the side of opposition or was she on the side of the government? Opposition. If Fatima Zahra alayhi salam succeeded in her argument about Fadak, would you think that she would stop there or she would continue towards Imamah and begin to expose how the caliphate was stolen from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam? What do you think? If Fatima Zahra alayhi salam had won this argument, if Abu Bakr had conceded this, then she would obviously continue to the next step, and that is Imamah. And if Abu Bakr and the government conceded to Fatima Zahra, then they would have to start getting prepared for many more concessions. If Fatima Zahra would win, then others who have any claim against the government would also have a strong chance of winning. Especially at the first month of this new government, they had to show that they are powerful, that they are mighty. And what a better way to show their power than closing the door in front of the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Because they made it very clear. If we are able to close the door in front of Fatima Zahra, you know, I should in fact say, if they push the door against Fatima Zahra. If they show to the Muslim community what they did to Fatima Zahra, then they could do it. It's a strong sign, a strong message to everyone else. Don't dare stand in my way. Therefore, when we talk about Fadak, we're not talking about a piece of land. We're talking about Imamah. We're talking about the oppression of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. It took mere days for them to oppress them. One day, Al-Harun Al-Abbasi summoned Al-Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Salli ala Muhammad. He summons him and he tells him, O son of Fatima, the day has finally come. I will return Fadak to you, and I will return it to Bani Hashim. The Imam looks at him and tells him, you don't want to. He tells him, what do you mean? I want to give the land back to you. He tells him, trust me, you wouldn't want to. He tells him, I want to. Now, tell me, where is this piece of land located exactly and how big it is, so I can return it back. So the Imam responds by telling him essentially the entirety of the Muslim lands, from Samarkand all the way to Africa, and from Yemen all the way up north to the Levant area. So he looks at Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam and he tells him, that's not Fadak. He didn't understand the point. Because it wasn't just Fadak that was usurped from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. It was the entire land. Fadak represented the oppression, the first oppression against the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And that is why Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam outlined the entire Muslim world. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the oppression and the opposition knew exactly that if they were to concede Fadak to Fatima Zahra, then the door of concessions would open. And their seat would slowly be threatened. So they closed that door from the very first moment. But you might have another question. You might say that the first, second, and third caliph died, and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam eventually took the caliphate. He had the power to do whatever he wanted. Why didn't Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam take Fadak back? And I will give you the answer from the very words of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. In a letter to Uthman ibn Hanif, he says, بلى كانت في أيدينا فدك من كل ما أظلته السماء فشحت عليها نفوس قوم وسخت عنها نفوس آخرين. Surely Fadak was under our possession, but some souls were very greedy for it, and other souls didn't care for it. And what do I do with Fadak? For this dunya is temporary. And the Imam continues in this letter talking about the grave and the hereafter. Another hadith says that the Imam says Fatima had died, and the person who oppressed her has also died. So I will not interfere in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do, for ultimately He is the ultimate judge. And on the day of judgment, He can decide. And He can take the rights of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam back. Because even if Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam would take Fadak back, would that bring Fatima Zahra back? Then what's the value of Fadak? What's the value of that piece of land? If you lose your loved one, does any piece of land make up for it? I don't think so. And this shows the akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Even from a position of power, they don't care for this dunya. All they care about, all they focus about is what? It's the akhirah. Because even if Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam took Fadak, right? Let's say he took it. Where would the money go? He would give it back to the poor people. Anyways, it's going to go to the same way. He's Khalifa. He's going to give it to the poor people. Whether it's owned by him or it's owned by the Muslim community. So it didn't matter for him to take Fadak anymore. Because Fatima Zahra alayhi salam was gone. The oppressor was gone. And the wealth of the land was going where it was supposed to go. And that's to the poor people. And that's what Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam cared for. Subhanallah. And inshallah we'll conclude with this. Subhanallah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi spent 23 years building this community, building this ummah, guiding them. Moments after he died, the oppression against his family began. as he was being in the process of being buried, as Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was doing his ghusl, they were under the Saqifah conspiring against his Ahlul Bayt. And they did the very thing that he asked them not to do. For 23 years, after 23 years, he asked them of one thing. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. I ask nothing of you but mawadda, but love towards my family. That's all he wanted. After 23 years, he wanted one thing only. Subhanallah, it's as if the Prophet knew what would happen to his daughter. And he knew. Ibn Abbas, the cousin of Rasulullah, narrates that one day the Prophet saw Fatima Zahra alayha salam and he began to weep. He tells him, Ya Rasulullah, وَمَا يُبْكِيكِ? What makes you cry? He says, إِنِّي لَمَّا رَأَيْتُهَا ذَكَرْتُ مَا يُصْنَعُ بِهَا بَعْدِي. When I saw her, I remembered what will happen to her after me. كأني بها وقد دخل الذل بيتها وانتهكت حرمتها وغصب حقها ومنع إرثها. It's as if I saw how humiliated she became in her very own home. It's as if I can see her rights being taken away from her. It's as if I can see her inheritance blocked from her. وكسر جنبها وأسقط جنينها وهي تنادي ومحمدا. It's as if I can see her ribs broken. It's as if I can see her miscarrying. It's as if I can see her crying, "Oh Muhammad, wa Muhammadah," but there is no answer to her. وَتُسْتَغِيث فَلَا تُغَاث. It's as if I can see her crying for help, my very own daughter Fatima Zahra, crying for help, but there is no one to come rescue her. فَلَا تَزَالُ بَعْدِي مَحْزُونَةٌ مَكْرُوبَةٌ. After me she will remain sad, she will remain oppressed, with tears in her eyes when she remembers that Jibreel no longer comes down to this earth. With tears in her eyes when she remembers that her father is no longer with her. She will feel lonely at night when she does not hear my voice reciting the Holy Quran. She will feel lonely when she remembers the days of respect she had when I was living. And she will feel sad when she remembers and feels the attack on her door. Imagine what Fatima Zahra alayha salam goes through. Imagine an 18-year-old girl who just lost her father. Rather than receiving love and attention and care, they repay her by oppressing her. They ask the Imam, once Fatima Zahra alayha salam began crying intensely over Rasulullah after his death and after being oppressed. And by the way, Fatima wouldn't cry for herself. She would cry as a sign of oppression, as a sign of resistance against the oppressors. She would cry to indicate in the history books that I cried because of those people, and I died sad and upset and angry at those people. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said what? فاطمة بضعة مني يؤذيني ما يؤذيها. Fatima is a piece of me. What hurts Fatima hurts me. Fatima wanted to write in the history books that she was angry, that she was upset. And her being upset means that Rasulullah would be upset. And Rasulullah upset means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset. But imagine what happened to Fatima Zahra. She cries for her father. They tell Amir al-Mu'mineen, Fatima's crying is too loud. Please have her stop, either at night or during the day. So Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam goes and builds a house for her in Jannat al-Baqi', a small hut under a tree called Baytul Ahzan, the house of sorrow. She would take Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein, Sayyida Zainab with her, and she would sit in that hut and talk to her father. Fatima Zahra would just remember the days of her father. She would cry for her father. She would tell him, where have you been? Your very own companions have betrayed you. They have oppressed you. They have done the one thing that you have asked them not to do. يا من على شم تربة أحمد أن لا يشم على مدى الزمان غواليا صبت علي مصائب لو أنها صبت على الأيام صرنا لياليا. She says there was so much oppression against me that if this oppression happened today, it would have become night. Brothers and sisters, let us take advantage of our tears, of our hearts being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this moment, and make dua for ourselves, for our family, for the ones who are oppressed, for the mu'mineen, for the mu'minat, for those who are deceased from our families, those who believe in the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. You know how much barakah there is in this majlis? You know how much barakah there is in this majlis? There is a scholar in Najaf, may Allah prolong his life. He holds one of the largest classes in the seminary. Towards the end of his class one day, he said a piece of advice to his students. And this man is a scholar. He spent all of his life serving the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. He says, when I think of my deeds, I don't see anything that would make me attain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't see any of my deeds being worthy of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he says there are two things that give me hope. The first is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is so merciful beyond our comprehension. And he says the second is Fatima Zahra alayha salam. He says, if there is my safety net on the day of judgment, is Fatima Zahra alayha salam. The hadith says Fatima will do shafa'ah, will give shafa'ah to her, to those who love her, and she will pick them like the chicken that picks a seed. Have you seen a chicken pick a seed? How fast and how quickly? She will come on the day of judgment, and inshallah she will grant every single one of us intercession. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك قاضي الحاجات إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم اجعلنا من خدمة الزهرة. Oh Allah, allow us to be the servants of Fatima Zahra. Oh Allah, allow us to be the servants of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Oh Allah, allow us to live and breathe the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Oh Allah, do not lead us astray. Allahumma, let us brothers and sisters stand up and recite the dua for our Imam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله